The mall was a kaleidoscope of noise and light, a Friday evening frenzy in suburban Virginia. Ethan Carter's heart pounded as he gripped his son's small hand, weaving through the crowd. Then, a scream sliced through the chatter. "That man's stealing a kid." Ethan froze. The accusation hit like a punch, and every eye in the food court turned to him. He was a black man, 32, in his paramedic uniform, still smelling faintly of antiseptic from a long shift. His son, Noah, 6 years old with a mop of curly hair, clung to his leg, confused but unafraid. Ethan's husband, Lucas Reed, was a few steps away, holding a tray of pretzels, his teacher's sweater slightly rumpled. The world seemed to slow as a woman, red-faced and pointing, shouted again, "Someone stop him! He's taking that boy!" The crowd parted, forming a semicircle of suspicion. Ethan's throat tightened. He'd faced stares before. Being black and gay in a conservative pocket of America wasn't new. But this was different. This was a blade, sharp and public, cutting into the life he'd built with Lucas and Noah. "Ma'am, he's my son," Ethan said, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. Noah's grip tightened, his small voice piping up, "Daddy, why is she yelling?" Lucas set the tray down, stepping forward. At 31, his pale skin flushed under the mall's harsh lights, his hazel eyes fierce. "This is our son," he said, calm but firm, his teacher's tone cutting through the murmurs. The woman faltered but didn't back down. "I saw him grab the kid. He doesn't look like he belongs with him." Her words dripped with assumption, and Ethan felt the familiar sting of being judged by his skin, his love, his existence. Security guards approached, radios crackling. Ethan's pulse raced. He'd been a paramedic for a decade, saving lives in ambulances and ERs. But here, he was just a man in the wrong place. Wrong skin, wrong love. Lucas knelt beside Noah, whispering, "It's okay, buddy. We're fine." But they weren't. Not yet. The crowd's whispers grew louder, phones raised, capturing the moment like vultures circling a wound. Ethan's mind flashed to how they got here. 5 years ago, he and Lucas had fought to adopt Noah, a boy born to a mother lost to addiction. The process was brutal. Home visits, court hearings, skepticism from caseworkers who didn't trust two men to raise a child. They'd won, though. Noah was theirs legally, emotionally, irrevocably. But moments like this reminded Ethan that love didn't erase prejudice. Not in Virginia, not in 2025, not in a mall food court where a single accusation could unravel everything. The lead guard, a burly man with a skeptical frown, demanded, "ID, sir, and proof this kid's yours." Ethan reached for his wallet, hands steady despite the weight of every stare. Lucas's jaw clenched, but he stayed silent, knowing one wrong word could escalate this. Noah, sensing the tension, pressed closer to Ethan. "Why is everyone mad, Daddy?" he asked, his voice small but clear. The woman's eyes narrowed. "He's lying. I saw him pull the kid away." Ethan's chest burned. He wanted to shout, to demand why his love for his son was questioned, why his skin made him a suspect. But he couldn't. Not with Noah watching. Not with Lucas's hand brushing his arm, grounding him. The guard scanned Ethan's ID, then Lucas's, but the crowd's murmurs didn't stop. "Doesn't look right," someone muttered. "Two guys with a kid?" another whispered. Ethan knelt, meeting Noah's wide eyes. "We're okay, bud. Just stay close." Noah nodded, but his lip trembled. Lucas's voice broke the tension. "We have adoption papers at home. We can show you everything." The guard hesitated, glancing at the woman, who was now less certain but still defiant. "I know what I saw," she insisted. The situation teetered on the edge of chaos. Ethan's training kicked in: stay calm, assess, act. He could handle heart attacks, car accidents, overdoses. But this was a different kind of emergency. He looked at Lucas, whose eyes screamed, "We'll get through this." They always did. Together, they'd faced family rejections, job discriminations, the world's quiet and loud hatreds. But Noah was their line in the sand. No one would take him from them. The guard's radio crackled again. "We need to take this to the office," he said. Ethan's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a misunderstanding anymore. It was a fight for their family. Lucas squeezed his hand, a silent vow. They'd faced this, like they'd faced everything else. But as they followed the guard, Noah's small hand in his, Ethan couldn't shake the fear that this time, love might not be enough. The mall's security office was a cramped, fluorescent-lit room that smelled of stale coffee and cheap air freshener. Ethan sat on a metal chair, Noah on his lap, the boy's small hands clutching his paramedic badge like a lifeline. Lucas stood by the door, arms crossed, his teacher's calm fraying at the edges. The guard, Officer Malone, flipped through their IDs with deliberate slowness, his expression unreadable. The accusing woman, now identified as Karen Whitaker, stood in the corner, her phone still in hand, as if ready to record proof of her righteousness. "Look," Lucas said, his voice tight but polite. "We've shown you our IDs. Noah's our son. We adopted him legally. Can we go now?" Malone didn't look up. "We're waiting on a supervisor. And we need to verify your story." Ethan's jaw tightened. Verify. As if their family was a claim to be fact-checked, not a life they'd built through years of love and struggle. Noah shifted, whispering, "Daddy, are we in trouble?" Ethan's heart cracked. "No, buddy. Just a mix-up." He forced a smile, but his eyes locked with Lucas's, silently sharing the weight of the moment. They'd been here before, not in a security office, but in moments where the world demanded they prove their right to exist. Like when Ethan's mother refused to meet Lucas, or when Lucas's principal questioned if their lifestyle was appropriate for a teacher. Each time, they'd fought back with quiet strength. But this was public, raw, and Noah was caught in the middle. Malone's radio buzzed, and a woman's voice crackled through. "CPS is on their way. Hold them." Ethan's stomach plummeted. Child Protective Services. This wasn't just a mall incident anymore. It was a threat to their family. Lucas stepped forward, his voice sharp. "You're calling CPS over a misunderstanding? We have documents. We're his parents." Malone shrugged, unmoved. "Procedure. The lady says she saw something suspicious." Karen spoke up, her voice less certain now. "He was pulling the boy. Didn't look right. I was protecting the child." Ethan's hands curled into fists, but he kept them still, Noah's weight grounding him. "I was guiding him through the crowd," Ethan said, each word measured. "He's 6. He wanders. I'm his father." Karen's eyes darted away, but she didn't apologize. Lucas pulled out his phone, scrolling to a photo of their adoption day. Ethan and Lucas in suits, Noah grinning in a tiny bow tie, the judge's gavel in the background. "Here," he said, shoving the phone toward Malone. "This is us. This is our son." Malone glanced at it, unimpressed. "We'll need more than a photo." The door opened, and a supervisor, a middle-aged woman with a tired face, entered. She introduced herself as Ms. Daniels and took the IDs from Malone. "Tell me what happened," she said, her tone neutral but her eyes sharp. Ethan recounted the moment, how he'd been holding Noah's hand, how Karen's scream had stopped them cold. Lucas added details, his voice steady but laced with frustration. Noah, quiet until now, piped up, "My daddies love me. Why's everyone mad?" Ms. Daniels's expression softened for a moment, but she turned to Karen. "You're sure of what you saw?" Karen hesitated, her certainty cracking. "It just looked wrong. He didn't look like the boy's father." Ethan's chest burned, but he stayed silent. Lucas didn't. "Didn't look right because he's black? Or because we're two men?" The room went quiet, the accusation hanging heavy. Ms. Daniels sighed. "We're not here to debate that. We need to confirm guardianship." Ethan felt the walls closing in. He'd saved lives in worse conditions. Gunshot wounds, heart attacks. But this was a battle he couldn't control. Noah's small hand squeezed his. "Daddy, can we go home?" Ethan kissed his forehead. "Soon, bud." The wait for CPS stretched on, each minute a lifetime. Lucas paced, his usual calm replaced by a restless energy. Ethan knew that look. Lucas was planning, strategizing, ready to fight. They'd met 7 years ago at a community fundraiser. Ethan bandaging a kid's scraped knee. Lucas organizing a book drive. Their first date was a quiet coffee shop, where Lucas's laugh had made Ethan feel like home for the first time. They'd built a life together, adopted Noah, faced every storm side by side. But this storm felt different. When the CPS worker arrived, a woman named Ms. Patel, she carried a clipboard and a no-nonsense air. She reviewed their IDs, the adoption photo, and asked Noah gentle questions. "Who are these men, sweetie?" Noah's answer was clear, unhesitating. "My daddies, Ethan and Lucas." Ms. Patel nodded, jotting notes, but her face gave nothing away. Ethan's mind raced. What if they didn't believe Noah? What if Karen's accusation carried more weight than their truth? He thought of the nights he'd rocked Noah to sleep, the mornings Lucas read him stories, the quiet moments that made them a family. Those couldn't be taken away, could they? Ms. Patel looked up. "We'll need to see your adoption papers. Can you provide them?" Lucas nodded. "They're at home. We can get them now." Ms. Daniels interjected. "We'll need you to stay until this is resolved." Ethan's heart sank, but Noah's voice broke through. "I want to go home with my daddies." The room stilled, his words a small but powerful truth. The security office felt like a pressure cooker, the air thick with tension and unspoken judgments. Ethan held Noah close, his son's steady breathing a reminder of why he couldn't lose his cool. Lucas sat beside him now, their knees touching, a silent anchor in the storm. Ms. Patel, the CPS worker, flipped through her notes, her expression unreadable. Karen Whitaker stood by the door, her earlier bravado fading but her presence still a thorn in Ethan's side. Ms. Patel spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I understand this is upsetting, but we need to follow protocol. Can you arrange for someone to bring the adoption papers?" Lucas nodded, already texting their neighbor, Sarah, a retired lawyer who'd been their rock during the adoption process. "She'll be here in 20 minutes, he said, his voice tight with hope and fear. Ethan's mind churned. He'd seen prejudice before, on the job, in passing glances, in the way some patients hesitated when he reached to help. But this was personal, a direct attack on his family. He glanced at Noah, who was coloring on a scrap of paper Malone had given him, oblivious to the stakes. Ethan envied that innocence. He wanted to shield it, to keep Noah from ever knowing how cruel the world could be. Lucas leaned in, whispering, "We've got this. Sarah's coming. We're solid." Ethan nodded, but doubt gnawed at him. What if the papers weren't enough? What if Karen's accusation, rooted in bias, carried more weight than their truth? He thought of the day they'd brought Noah home, a tiny bundle of energy who'd changed their lives. Ethan had been terrified of failing, of not being enough. Lucas had been the steady one, promising they'd figure it out together. And they had, until now. Ms. Daniels, the supervisor, checked her watch. "If your documents check out, this should be quick." Her tone was neutral, but Ethan caught the skepticism in her eyes. He wanted to scream that he'd saved lives today, that he'd bandaged wounds and restarted hearts, that he was a good father. But he stayed silent, knowing anger wouldn't help. Karen shifted, her voice quieter now. "I was just trying to protect the boy. You hear stories, you know?" Lucas's eyes flashed, but he kept his voice even. "Stories aren't facts. You saw a black man with a child and assumed the worst. That's the problem." Karen flushed, but didn't respond. Ethan admired Lucas's restraint. He wasn't sure he could have managed it. Ms. Patel knelt beside Noah, her tone gentle. "Do you like living with your daddies?" Noah looked up, his crayon pausing. Yeah, they make me pancakes. And Daddy, Ethan sings to me when I'm scared. Ethan's throat tightened. He remembered those nights. Noah waking from nightmares. Ethan humming old jazz tunes until he fell back asleep. Those moments felt sacred, untouchable. Yet here they were, defending them. The door opened, and Sarah burst in, her silver hair wild from rushing. She clutched a folder, her lawyer's instincts sharp. Here, she said, handing it to Ms. Patel. Certified adoption papers, court orders, everything. Ms. Patel scanned the documents, her brow furrowing as she cross-referenced details. Ethan held his breath, Lucas's hand finding his under the table. Minutes passed like hours. Ms. Patel finally looked up. These appear in order, but we'll need to verify with the court. Ethan's heart sank. More waiting, more scrutiny. Noah, bored now, tugged at his sleeve. Can we get ice cream, Daddy? Ethan forced a smile. Soon, bud. But the word soon felt like a lie. Malone's radio buzzed again, and he stepped outside, leaving them with Ms. Daniels and Ms. Patel. Karen, now silent, looked almost regretful, but Ethan couldn't muster sympathy. Her assumption had turned their family outing into a nightmare. Lucas leaned close, his voice low. I'm calling our lawyer. This is ridiculous. Ethan nodded, grateful for Lucas's fight, even as exhaustion weighed him down. Sarah stayed, her presence a quiet comfort. She'd been at their wedding, had cried when they signed the adoption papers. You boys are the best parents I know, she whispered. Ethan wanted to believe her, but the room felt like a cage. He thought of his own father, who'd walked out when Ethan came out at 17. He'd sworn he'd be better for Noah, that his son would never doubt his love. Now that promise felt fragile. Miss Patel's phone rang, and she stepped out to take the call. The room was silent except for Noah's crayon scratching. Ethan looked at Lucas, whose eyes were tired but fierce. We're not losing him, Lucas said, barely audible. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. They'd fought too hard for this family. No one, not Karen, not CPS, not the world, would take it away. When Miss Patel returned, her face was softer. The court confirms your guardianship. But we have one more step. Ethan's stomach twisted. One more step. Always one more step. Miss Patel's words hung in the air, heavy with implication. We need to interview Noah alone, she said, her tone professional but not unkind. Ethan's heart lurched. He tightened his grip on Noah, who was still coloring, unaware of the gravity. Lucas's face paled, but his voice stayed steady. He's 6. He doesn't need to be questioned alone. Miss Patel raised a hand. It's standard procedure. We ensure the child feels safe to speak freely. Ethan wanted to argue, to demand they leave his son out of this, but he knew resistance could make things worse. Lucas's eyes met his, a silent agreement. They had to play along, for now. Sarah, still clutching the folder, nodded reassuringly. I'll be right outside, she said, her voice firm. Noah looked up, sensing the shift. Do I have to go, Daddy? Ethan forced a smile, brushing a curl from Noah's forehead. Just for a minute, bud. Tell the nice lady the truth. Okay? Noah nodded, clutching his crayon like a talisman. Miss Patel led him to a small adjacent room, the door closing with a soft click that felt like a gunshot. Ethan's chest tightened. He trusted Noah's truth, but the idea of his son facing questions alone, questions about their family, made his skin crawl. Lucas paced, his hands running through his hair. This is insane, he muttered. One woman's prejudice, and we're treated like criminals. Ethan reached for his hand, grounding them both. He's strong. He'll tell them. Sarah sat beside them, her voice low. I've seen this before. CPS is thorough, but they're not the enemy. You've got the law on your side. Ethan wanted to believe her, but the law hadn't always protected people like him. Growing up, he'd seen how systems could bend under bias, cops who looked the other way, judges who favored the right kind of family. He and Lucas had fought to prove they were enough for Noah. Now they had to prove it again. In the other room, Ms. Patel's voice was a soft murmur through the thin wall. Ethan strained to hear, catching fragments. "Do you feel safe? Who takes care of you?" Noah's answers were clear, his small voice steady. "My daddies. They love me." Ethan's eyes stung. Lucas squeezed his hand, his own eyes glassy. "He's got this," Lucas whispered, but his voice cracked. Minutes dragged on. Ethan's mind replayed the mall moment. Karen's scream, the crowd's stares, the weight of being seen as a threat. He'd always known his identity. Black, gay, a father, made him a target. But knowing didn't soften the blow. Lucas, too, had faced his share. Disowned by his brother, scrutinized at work. Yet they'd built something beautiful, something worth fighting for. Noah was their proof. The door opened, and Noah ran to Ethan, burying his face in his chest. Miss Patel followed, her expression softer now. "He's a bright boy," she said. "He spoke highly of both of you." Ethan exhaled, relief flooding him, but Lucas pressed. "So we're done here?" Miss Patel hesitated. "The paperwork checks out and Noah's statements align. But we'll need to do a home visit to close this." Ethan's relief soured. A home visit. Another invasion, another test. Lucas's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Fine. When?" Miss Patel checked her clipboard. "Tomorrow morning. We'll call to confirm." Noah looked up, confused. "Are we going home now?" Ethan kissed his forehead. "Yeah, bud. We're going home." Ms. Daniels stood, her tone brisk. "You're free to go, but stay available." Karen, silent now, slipped out without a word. Ethan wanted to confront her, to demand she see the harm she'd caused. But Noah's weight in his arms kept him grounded. Lucas gathered their things, his movements sharp with suppressed anger. Sarah touched Ethan's shoulder. "You did good, both of you." They left the office, the mall's noise crashing over them like a wave. Noah held both their hands, swinging slightly, oblivious to the lingering stares. Ethan felt exposed, raw, but Lucas's presence steadied him. They stopped at the ice cream stand, as promised, and Noah's grin as he chose chocolate chip felt like a small victory. At home, their small Virginia townhouse was a sanctuary. Noah ran to his room, clutching a new coloring book. Ethan sank onto the couch, exhaustion hitting hard. Lucas sat beside him, their shoulders touching. "We're okay," Lucas said, but it sounded like a question. Ethan nodded, though doubt lingered. Tomorrow's visit loomed, another hurdle in a race they shouldn't have to run. As they tucked Noah into bed, his small voice broke the silence. "Why did that lady think you were bad, Daddy?" Ethan's heart ached. He glanced at Lucas, who took Noah's hand. "Some people don't understand our family, but we know the truth. We love you." Noah smiled, drifting off. Ethan lingered, watching his son sleep, vowing to protect him, no matter what came next. The morning sun filtered through the townhouse blinds, casting soft stripes across the living room. Ethan hadn't slept, his mind replaying the mall, the security office, Noah's small voice calling him daddy. Lucas was up early, brewing coffee, his movements tense but purposeful. They'd cleaned the house last night, not because it was messy, but because they knew CPS would judge every detail. Every toy out of place, every dish in the sink. Noah bounced into the kitchen, oblivious to the stakes, chattering about his school project on dinosaurs. Ethan forced a smile, ruffling his curls. "T-Rex still your favorite?" Noah nodded, launching into a detailed explanation of sharp teeth. Lucas caught Ethan's eye, a silent check-in. They were a team, always had been, but today felt like a test they couldn't study for. Ms. Patel arrived at 9 a.m., her clipboard replaced by a calm demeanor that did little to ease Ethan's nerves. She greeted Noah first, crouching to his level. "Nice to see you again, Noah. Can you show me your room?" Noah grabbed her hand, eager to show off his dinosaur posters. Ethan and Lucas followed, their home suddenly feeling like a stage. The visit was thorough, too thorough. Ms. Patel checked Noah's room, the kitchen, even the backyard where a small swing set stood. She asked about routines, school, medical care. Ethan answered, his paramedic precision kicking in. Noah's pediatrician visits, his asthma inhaler, their nightly story time. Lucas added details about school, his voice warm as he described Noah's love for reading. Miss Patel nodded, jotting notes, her face neutral. When she asked to speak to Noah alone again, Ethan's stomach twisted, but he let it happen. Lucas squeezed his arm, whispering, "He's got this." In the living room, they sat in silence, the clock ticking too loudly. Ethan thought of the first time he'd held Noah, a tiny, squirming bundle in a foster home. He'd known then that he'd do anything for him. Now that promise was being tested. Ms. Patel returned, Noah trailing behind, clutching a stuffed triceratops. "He's a happy, well-cared-for child," she said, her tone softer now. "Your home is stable, and Noah clearly loves you both." Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. But Lucas pressed, "So this is over?" Ms. Patel hesitated. "I'll submit my report. You should hear from us soon. But I see no immediate concerns." The words were a lifeline, but not a victory. Ethan wanted to feel relieved, but the weight of scrutiny lingered. As Ms. Patel left, Noah ran to them, hugging their legs. "Can we go to the park?" Ethan laughed, the sound shaky. "Sure, bud." Lucas met his eyes, a mix of exhaustion and defiance. They weren't done fighting, not yet. At the park, Noah ran to the swings, his laughter a bomb. Ethan and Lucas sat on a bench, watching him. "I keep thinking about her," Ethan said, his voice low. "Karen. How one person's bias can do this." Lucas nodded, his hand finding Ethan's. "She's not the first, won't be the last. But we're stronger than that." Ethan wanted to believe it, but the fear lingered. What if this happened again? What if next time the system wasn't on their side? He thought of his own childhood, raised by a single mom who'd worked double shifts to keep them afloat. She'd loved him fiercely, even after he came out, but she'd warned him, "The world won't always be kind, Ethan." She'd been right. Lucas's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "Lawyers ready if you need her. Stay strong." Ethan felt a surge of gratitude. Their community, Sarah, their friends, their chosen family, had held them up through this. But the mall incident had exposed a truth. Their family, beautiful as it was, would always be a target to some. Noah ran back, breathless, holding a dandelion. "For you, Daddy." Ethan took it, his heart swelling. "Thanks, bud." Lucas grinned, pulling Noah onto his lap. For a moment it was just them, a family against the world. But Ethan knew the world wasn't done with them yet. That night they tucked Noah in, reading his favorite dinosaur book. As Noah slept, Ethan and Lucas sat on the couch, the silence heavy. "We need to talk about what's next," Lucas said. Ethan nodded. They couldn't just move on. They had to protect Noah, protect their family, from a world that too often saw them as less. The fight wasn't over, it was just beginning. The days after the CPS visit were a blur of normalcy laced with unease. Ethan went back to his shifts at the hospital, saving lives while carrying the weight of the mall incident. Lucas returned to his classroom, fielding questions from curious colleagues with a practiced smile. Noah, blissfully unaware, chattered about school and dinosaurs, but Ethan noticed him clinging a little closer at night. They hadn't heard from CPS, but the silence wasn't comforting. Ethan felt like they were waiting for a verdict, their family on trial for existing. Lucas, ever the planner, had already met with their lawyer, drafting a plan in case CPS pushed further. "We're not just reacting anymore," Lucas said one night, his voice fierce. "We're going to fight back." Ethan admired Lucas's fire, but he was tired. Tired of proving their worth, tired of the stares, tired of the world's assumption that their love was less valid. He'd always been the steady one, the paramedic who thrived in chaos, but this chaos was different. It wasn't a wound he could stitch or a heart he could restart. It was their life. One evening, Sarah stopped by with a bottle of wine and a stack of legal research. "You're not alone in this," she said, her eyes kind but fierce. She'd found local advocacy groups fighting for LGBTQ families, and she urged them to connect. "You could turn this into something bigger," she said. Ethan hesitated. He just wanted to protect Noah, not become a symbol. But Lucas's eyes lit up. "Maybe we should." For him, the idea took root. They met with an advocacy group, Equality Virginia, who'd heard about their story through Sarah. The group's leader, a woman named Carla, listened as they recounted the mall incident, her face a mix of empathy and anger. "This happens too often," she said. "Misunderstandings rooted in bias, escalating because people don't see families like yours as real." She offered resources, legal support, community networks, even a chance to speak at a local event. Ethan wasn't sure he was ready to go public, but Lucas was all in. "We can't let this happen to someone else," he said. Ethan saw the teacher in him, the man who believed stories could change minds. So they agreed to speak, to share their truth, even if it meant exposing their wounds. The event was a small community gathering in a Richmond library, but to Ethan, it felt like a spotlight. He stood beside Lucas, Noah playing nearby with other kids. Lucas spoke first, his voice steady, recounting them all, the fear, the love that held them together. Ethan followed, his words raw. "I'm a paramedic. I save lives. But in that mall, I was just a black man, a gay man who had to prove I was my son's father." The room was silent, then erupted in applause. Noah ran to them, hugging Ethan's legs. "You did good, Daddy." The response was overwhelming. Strangers shared their stories. Other LGBTQ parents, people of color, families who'd faced similar scrutiny. Ethan felt a shift, a sense of community he hadn't realized he needed. But the weight of the incident lingered. Karen's accusation had exposed a truth. Their family would always be vulnerable to someone's snap judgment. Back home, they got a call from Miss Patel. "Your case is closed," she said. "No further action needed." Relief flooded Ethan, but it was bittersweet. The system had worked, but only after putting them through hell. Lucas hung up, his face a mix of triumph and exhaustion. "We're free," he said. Ethan nodded, but he knew freedom came with a cost. That night, they sat on the porch, Noah asleep upstairs. Lucas took Ethan's hand. "We're more than this moment," he said. "We're a family." Ethan nodded, his throat tight. He thought of Noah's laugh, Lucas's strength, the life they'd built. They'd faced the world's worst and come out stronger. But the fight wasn't over. They decided to keep speaking, to advocate for families like theirs. It wasn't about fame or glory, it was about Noah, about making sure he grew up in a world that saw his family as whole. Ethan looked at Lucas, his partner, his home. "We're doing this," he said. Lucas smiled, squeezing his hand. "Together." Months passed, but the mall incident left a scar, a reminder of how fragile their peace could be. Ethan and Lucas threw themselves into advocacy, speaking at more events, connecting with families who'd faced similar battles. Noah, now 7, started asking bigger questions. "Why don't some people like our family?" he'd asked one night, his eyes wide. Ethan's heart ached, but he answered honestly. "Some people don't understand us, Bud. But we love you, and that's what matters." Their story spread first locally, then beyond. A journalist from a Richmond paper interviewed them, publishing a piece that went viral. Comments poured in, support, hate, everything in between. Ethan read them late at night, Lucas asleep beside him. Some called them heroes, others called them unnatural. He focused on the good, on the messages from parents who said their story gave them hope. One day, a letter arrived, forwarded by Equality Virginia. It was from Karen Whitaker. Ethan's hands shook as he opened it. Her words were halting, raw. "I was wrong. I saw a stranger, not a father. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. She'd included a photo of her own family, a note about learning to see differently. Ethan didn't know if he could forgive her, but the letter felt like a crack in the wall of prejudice. Lucas framed it not as absolution, but as proof that change was possible. She's one person, he said, but one person can start something. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of their journey. They'd turned pain into purpose, not just for themselves, but for others. At Noah's school play, Ethan and Lucas sat in the front row, cheering as Noah roared as a T-Rex. The other parents smiled, some offering nods of respect. Ethan recognized a few from advocacy events. Their community was growing, a network of love against a world that could be cruel. Noah ran to them after, his costume lopsided, his grin wide. "Did I do good, daddies?" Ethan lifted him, kissing his cheek. "You were perfect." That night, they walked through the mall again, the same one where it all began. Noah held their hands, chattering about ice cream. The food court was crowded, but the stairs were fewer, the air lighter. Ethan felt Lucas's hand brush his, a quiet promise. They weren't just surviving anymore, they were thriving. Their fight had given them purpose, a voice. They'd faced the worst: accusation, scrutiny, fear, and come out whole. Noah's laughter, Lucas's love, their shared strength. It was enough. More than enough. As they left the mall, Noah's small voice rang out, clear and proud. "I love you, daddies." Ethan's heart swelled, and he knew, no matter what came next, they'd face it together. Their story wasn't just theirs anymore. It was a beacon, a reminder that love could endure, that truth could triumph. Ethan looked at his family, at the life they'd built, and felt a quiet certainty. They were unstoppable, not because the world had changed, but because their love had.